Hi there, my name is Megan. I'm autistic and ADHD, but I was actually misdiagnosed with bipolar for 6 years, and this is the story of how that happened. Please note that I am not saying that bipolar is not a real diagnosis or that if you are diagnosed with bipolar that it's actually autism and ADHD. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just here to tell my story, my experience of being misdiagnosed and finding out my actual diagnoses. So in 2012, I went off to college and my mental health absolutely fell apart. I had some mental health challenges before college, but it really got bad when I left for school. The first year, I just pushed through. I tried to pretend it wasn't happening. I just white-knuckled my way through it and thought this will get better eventually, and then it didn't. So by my second year, I decided to reach out for some help. My school had an online depression screener that you could take before seeking out counseling, and so I took that because I was pretty sure that's what was going on. But the results changed my life. Because the results said, hey, you're actually showing some signs of bipolar disorder. This is in no way diagnostic, but you might want to look into that. And I was like, wait, what? But it kind of made sense. I mean, one of the reasons that I pushed through that first year and didn't ask for help is because I didn't think I could be depressed because I had these periods of such high energy. So I researched the crap out of bipolar and it fit almost. My manias weren't that high, even for like hypomania, but they were a little bit out of character for me, and that's kind of what the bipolar diagnosis is really about. So I was like, maybe? And I went to counseling, and my counselor and my new psychiatrist both agreed that bipolar was a pretty good fit for me. But I never stopped doubting that diagnosis. It never quite felt right. I felt like a fraud for 6 years. I felt like I was lying to myself and to everybody else, and on top of that, the medication wasn't really working. But I was terrified of the idea that it might be something else because in my head, either I had bipolar or I had nothing, and I was just making it up and I was just this big whiny crybaby. The idea that something else might be going on was really hard for me to grasp, which now I know is because of my autistic rigid thinking, but at the time I just thought that that was true. Either I had bipolar or I had nothing. Finally, I graduated school and I moved back home and I had to get a different counselor and a different psychiatrist. And when I did, I managed to get a therapist who was very trauma informed. Actually, she was the first person to suggest that I might have ADHD and I totally blew her off. So sorry, Susan. But basically, this therapist helped me realize that all of my mood swings weren't random. They were triggered. I was experiencing trauma responses. Now, it turns out trauma didn't paint the whole picture either and was an incomplete explanation, and that's how eventually I discovered my autism and my ADHD. But that new therapist was finally the point where I was able to let go of that bipolar diagnosis because it just wasn't accurate. If you want to hear more about how I figured out I was autistic and ADHD, just let me know in the comments.